My wife 30F just revealed to me 33 meters that she kissed another man, and I'm not sure what to do next based on our weird history. Hey folks. I feel like this one needs a bit of history before I pose the question. So the girl and I met in 2008 and fell in love real quick. We met in mid-June of that year and by July we had started dating and by late September we had dropped the L-bomb. Things went exceedingly well those first few years, but midway through year 3 there was a lot more bickering and tension. I didn't have much direction in my job. I was around 25 at the time and she was 23, and I was still doing a lot of freelance video editing and contract work for contacts I'd made right out of college. It wasn't particularly well paying or consistent. I think that concerned her, providing we were looking at having a future together, but I think her main issue was I was never quite as social as her. Didn't like going out dancing and stuff and would always prefer a low-key evening. Admittedly, I could be pretty lame and unspontaneous, so I get that. From my side I kind of felt she was a little possessive at times and she made me feel guilty anytime I'd do something without her, like go hang out with my friends, even though it was not very often and was mostly just a bunch of dudes playing video games in someone's basement. It was also around this time that we were working on something on her laptop. We're both musicians and tried countless times to write songs together, and I noticed as she was checking her email she had a folder labeled with the name of her ex-boyfriend. None of them were recent emails, at least to my knowledge, but just ones she'd saved from the relationship. Now he was her first real love and they'd been together for at least couple of years and had a long distance thing, so I understood why he was important to her, but I was obviously bothered by the fact that she was holding onto these emails. I confronted her about it. We didn't have a huge blowout over it but had a long discussion where she assured me I had nothing to worry about and I begrudgingly accepted that. I'm not sure if she deleted the emails after that. Just under a year or so later, I felt the tension reach a boiling point and realized I wasn't making her happy. It was sort of a wake-up call to me and I decided to take her on a picnic and let her know I wanted to try to make things better. Apparently she had something she needed to tell me that day as well. The arguing and tension had gotten to be too much and she broke up with me. This was late 2012. Over the next few months I tried to limit communication with her because I was pretty heartbroken, but she would pop up every now and then. 2 or 3 months after the breakup, I saw that she had traveled to BC, where her ex lived. A month or 2 after that she called me after a show I did out of town that she had said she was going to attend, which obviously she didn't. I flat out asked her if she had been speaking to her ex before she ended her relationship with me, which she confirmed she had been. But after a month or 2 with him she realized, surprised that he had no interest in long-term commitment or marriage, which is what drove them apart in the first place. At this point I advised her not to contact me and she obliged for the better part of the next year and a half. We'd both been dating around and were both kind of fed up with it. By this point I had gotten a decent job and had moved out to a condo downtown, all within a few months of the breakup, funny enough. We had a few innocent conversations and things started to escalate. We started sleeping together for a few weeks and I lamented the fact that we had no real direction in the relationship. She didn't want to label it. I wanted to skip the bullshit and just get back together. She eventually relented and we got back together in late 2014. The relationship flourished. We were older, more mature, financially stable, everything was great. I had moved back home to start saving for a place we could buy together and by July 2017 we were married and living together. Last month, right around the time of our 2-year wedding anniversary, we were driving home from somewhere and she told me she had a confession to make. An old friend of hers from middle school who lived in the US or in Canada had come to visit in March and apparently while they were hanging out he kissed her. According to her the kiss didn't last more than a couple of seconds until she stopped it, but there were mutual, unresolved feelings there between the two of them. This happened in March and she told me in July. We spoke at length about it that night and I stayed in the guest bedroom for a few days. I haven't been able to wear my wedding ring or reciprocate the words, "I love you," since finding out. I agreed to go with her to see a therapist she'd been seeing who was already made aware of the incident. In therapy, I pointed out that it was hard for me to trust her because of the emerging pattern of this behavior, acting on unresolved feelings with someone else despite being in a committed relationship. She mentioned how hesitant she was when we got back together, which was sort of upsetting and another red flag. The therapist told us to go away and reflect and come back with our bottom line. Do we want to work to fix it, or are we going to end the marriage? I have been ping-ponging back and forth between those two thoughts for the better part of the month, and honestly I think I'm leaning toward filing for legal separation and starting the process of ending this marriage. But there's a lot of history here, and I worry that I'm being too rash and maybe not doing enough self-evaluation. What do y'all think? Thanks in advance for all your input. Update: it's been about a year since my wife 31F revealed she cheated on me 33 meters, and the feelings of mistrust haven't gone away despite us working on our relationship. So about a year ago my wife revealed to me that she kissed another guy. I was on the verge of ending things and decided to seek guidance from a therapist one-on-one, and also we saw the therapist together as a couple. I also decided to seek guidance from strangers on the internet, original post above. The therapy and our open conversations with one another were helpful. It seemed like we were communicating better and things could be repaired slowly. And so that's what we tried to do over the course of the next year. My friends were already not her biggest fans based on how our first relationship ended, sort of similar with her going after an old flame and me finding out about it after we had broken up. I had told one of my friends about the kiss, and apparently that news has since spread, so my friends' scrutiny of her has only gotten stronger. Recently, hearing how they feel about her has dug open some of the old wounds from a year ago when she first revealed that she cheated. I started reflecting and realizing that I'm still unhappy. She's a pretty needy person due to a lot of circumstances outside of her control: fibromyalgia, issues with anxiety, etc. But I find myself less inclined to oblige with her needs because of the underlying resentment around what she did. There's this underlying thought of, why take care of someone who betrayed my trust? On top of all of this, I just quit my job, which I absolutely hated, to go back to school. We live together, and I know this is going to be an emotional and financial strain over the next couple of years. To be honest, pride is probably a factor for me here because I'm so not used to being the vulnerable one in the relationship, and that's about to happen in full force. This worries me for a few reasons. For one, I'm worried it's only going to further strain our relationship as I'm going to be laser focused on my studies while still trying to make time for us as a couple and for me as a person. I feel like that's going to further result in her needs not being met and I'll be perceived as neglectful. The other thing is, I just don't know if I'm ready to rely on her during this huge shift in my life. That requires placing a lot of trust in someone who has already betrayed my trust a couple of times. She has stated that she is going to take care of me while I pursue school and a new career and that we'll make it work, but I just don't know if I can rely on her. I do care about her a great deal, and I'm so afraid to throw another grenade into the midst of my life that's already mid-explosion. Is there a way to salvage this? As parting ways would likely mean selling our house, moving back in with our folks, catching a lot of shit from our families, and a whole bunch of other things that will be tough to deal with on top of the already difficult situation I've put myself in. Just looking for some guidance here.